Hey there, super friends. It's Joey with Last Point Gaming. Today is Tuesday, February 26, 2019. There was no episode yesterday because there was super high wind speeds here in central Pennsylvania. And this actually does pose somewhat of a risk because of the kind of car I drive. It's light and has a lot of surface area. But more than that, when I vented the sunroof, as I've been doing because recording with my window down on the highway has, created audio issues. Son of a bitch. People should totally not be allowed to park fucking dumpsters on this road. Anyway, yeah, I vented my sunroof as I've been doing. And, even the sound from the wind there was just really bad, and I figured the audio would suck pretty hard, so I didn't bother. So, all that being said, my gaming this weekend, F&M went 1-3. It's been a while since I've done that bad. It's not bad. It's not a great record, but just had a bad week, I guess. The win I did manage to get, I'm not usually one that's down with telling your opponent that they didn't win, you lost. But that's kind of what happened there. Is that guy's deck was just you know what? Screw you. You haven't bought me new sleeves. You never take me anywhere nice. The hell with you. He just couldn't get a decent draw. Either that or he's keeping really bad hands that he should have mulled. But both games, he couldn't even really get on the board. He was on Vengevine. It's not a terribly popular deck, so I don't know. There just may be something wrong with that deck. I don't know. I lost to a different Valakut player than the Valakut player that lost to me last week. He had Through the Breach in Emrakul. What the hell am I supposed to do there? When I don't have an Aether Vial on 3 and a Reflector Mage in hand. But that really wasn't a surprising loss. I struggle against Valakut decks a lot. But I also lost to Elves and Bant Spirits. The crux of it is, my opponents played well and I did not. Standard Showdown, on the other hand, 4-0'd that. 3 of my opponents were some of the more top-end players around the shop, so that was nice. Yeah, Mono Red's dead my ass, Ross. No, I definitely wouldn't recommend taking Mono Red to an Open or a GP or anything like that. It is probably the weakest positioned aggro deck in the format right now, which is unfortunate because, man, just Red has so many toys it doesn't usually have. You have a choice of 3 different card advantage engines. Is it just 3? Frenzy, Risk Factor, and Light, I think. I feel like there's another one that I'm skipping over because I don't like it for some reason. Yeah, you got a ton of burn. You got, decent cheap creatures to work with. And you got a creature that burns when it enters the battlefield, a creature that can burn instead of attacking. I don't know. Mono Red has a lot of good stuff going for it right now. It's just, I guess the problem is really that there's so much life gain in the format that it makes it gives mono red a really hard time, because mono red, it can't react much. You know, it can lava coil some things, you can burn out some creatures, but like, all your removal is damage based, which is typical for mono red. But when you're dealing with gigantic creatures, you know, that gets a little rough. And then on top of that, when you're dealing with life gain, that like really hurts your burn ability. Like, you can go from, yeah, this game's, you know, really going my way and I'm gonna get there, to, oh, they cast a giant Crassus. Oh, there's a wild growth walker that I don't have an answer to right at this second, and the follow-up Jade Light Ranger. Or Archway Angel. Or if you're playing against the mono blue deck, then they just, you know, spell pierce all your shit and their creatures outclass yours. Yeah, it's sad. Mono red has some of the best tools it's ever had, and yet is probably the weakest standard aggro deck. I keep playing it because it's what I have built. And I'm only playing in Standard Showdown because, you know, boss asked me to run them. So, if I took Standard seriously, I would definitely roll up something else. But, I don't know, I've been doing okay with it. But when you're going up against, like, real high caliber players that live and breathe the game, I mean, you can get lucky with mono red and hope that they get unlucky, but all in all, I don't think it's in a great place. But I did well with it. But anyway, all that aside, so that was my weekend. Let's talk about the Mythic Championship. The first ever Mythic Championship, which is somehow completely different from the Pro Tour. Yeah. We have our first ever Mythic Champion, Autumn Burchett. And Autumn is a historical Mythic Champion in multiple ways. One, they are the in fact first Mythic Champion, and two, they are the first even Pro Tour winner to be non-binary, which is pretty cool. Like, I don't really aspire to play Magic professionally in any way, shape, or form. Every once in a while, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna day 2 this event, and, you know, then I get my ass kicked, and I'm like, oh, that's right. Hey, look, there are neat people from the internet. I'm gonna go fangirl at them and, you know, still have a good time at this event. So, I don't really... It doesn't bother me that there hasn't been a champion that's like me. I also am part of a really good local gaming community that's very inclusive. So I've never... I won't say never. There was definitely a time where I was unsure of my standing, I guess, in the gaming community. I go by Joey online, or Sparrow, but I don't correct people that assume I'm a guy. And for a while, you know, it was just safer not to. At this point, unless it's pertinent to the conversation we're having, I just don't want to go through the hassle, especially like on Facebook where I go by Joey. And it always seems to be a big deal. Like, when I correct somebody, I'm like, oh, you know, actually, I'm a woman. And they're like, oh, you fooled me. You know, like, a lot of times, whoever I'm interacting with seems to take personal affront to the fact that my name, my chosen moniker, is traditionally associated with male. I was just happy to have a nickname that stuck, because if I had to hear one more person serenade me with that fucking song, I was going to stab somebody. So, having a shortened version of my proper name. For anybody curious, my proper name is Jolene. There's a Dolly Parton song, I'm not a goddamn home-wrecking tramp. And, I don't know, this area of Pennsylvania, we have people who are into country music, and it seems that song is a lot more well-known than you'd think. I just got so tired of it. So when a nickname at all stuck, I was like, fuck it. I don't even care if I like it or not. Like, I'm just not even going to evaluate that. This is a thing people call me. And I don't have to deal with Dolly Parton jokes. We're good. I didn't purposefully choose this, abbreviated form of my name because it causes a gender confusion thing. It's just what stuck, and I was just happy to have something stick. But, so while I don't really feel that need to have somebody to refer to be like, no, I belong here because look, Melissa De Toro was a high-level competitor before she went to join WotC. I don't need these people to point to and be like, you should accept I belong here because of this. Because, I don't know, I've just hit the point in my life where if you don't think I belong here, that sounds like a you problem, not a me problem. But that's me. I've fought my battles. I've just kind of gotten to the point where I couldn't possibly care less what detractors think of me. I just don't give a shit. But I understand for, this newer generation, or, maybe people that have been afraid to come out and express their gender identity, because of the stigmas and everything. Maybe for people like that, having somebody up there standing on the champion stage that they can refer to. I mean, people are still going to be dicks. People are still going to be assholes about things, because some people are just so fucking miserable that the only joy they can find in the world is bleeding some of that misery onto somebody else. But I don't think it's really about people looking at Autumn and then seeing somebody like them at their local shop and going, oh, okay, I accept this now. I think it's more about people who identify with Autumn, them winning this championship, giving them more confidence to feel like, what, no, I do belong here. So I guess the whole takeaway from that is, don't be a douchebag. Let people be who they are. And I think Autumn's victory is great in and of their own right. When Huey Jensen won Worlds and everybody made this big deal about, the first openly gay man to, that's a world champion. And I really looked at that and I'm like, I don't understand why that has to be a big deal. Look at this human who won Worlds. Why do all these other demographics have to factor into this? And I guess over time I've realized that, that's how I see the world, but it's not how a lot of people see the world, and that's really shitty. So it's not about, making the big deal about his sexual orientation for Huey's sake. It's more about letting it be known, having him be open about it, and so other gay players can look up to him and say, hey, I belong here because he does. And, it really sucks that people need that. Not because they need it, but because the world is positioned in such a way that other people need to see somebody of those demographics performing well before they can accept newer contenders with those demographics. I don't know. It's frustrating. But I think it's great. And I think for everybody who identifies with Autumn, I think it's great that they have, that role model, that they have that to hold on to. Also, so the Pro Tour finals ending between Seth Manfield and Pascal Menard has always been one of my favorite moments in Magic coverage. From Pascal tapping Seth on the shoulder, okay, dude, you got it. To Seth's team, rushing the stage and, the hugs and picking him up, and it was just this great moment of, sportsmanship and companionship and just pure joy. I have to say, seeing Autumn's supporters rush the table when they won their finals match, it was just even a more beautiful moment than that. And, this is the kind of stuff that I think we need to celebrate in the Magic community, is just those displays of pure joy. I'm running out of words to really say what I'm trying to say, so I guess we'll just move on. Also, a question I've seen spring up because of the Carvalho, I believe that is how you say his name. His opponent played Cry of the Carnarium, killed his stuff. He did not exile the Benevolent Bodyguard from the graveyard as Cry of the Carnarium states you should. And he ended up reanimating it with Ajani, and people fucking lost their heads about it. So the common reply is that he sacked the Benevolent Bodyguard in response to the Cry of the Carnarium, which makes sense. And if it was any other card on the battlefield, I would more accept an accusation that he knew what he was doing was wrong. But because Bodyguard has that ability, that you can sack it in response to the spell being put on the stack, therefore removing it from the pool of creatures killed by the Cry of the Carnarium. If you're not as familiar with the card Cry of the Carnarium, you may not realize that it really doesn't matter how the creature got in the battle into the graveyard this turn. It's exiled anyway. And this has brought up because Carvalho is one of the MPL players. Should there be stronger sanctions against MPL players that make mistakes? Personally, I don't think so. And here's why. Just look at the community losing its collective head over, this mistake Carvalho made. And I guess Carvalho does have a history. We can't really discuss this without bringing that up. That he does have a history of doing shady shit, I guess. I don't really know much about that. I just see that people have talked about it. But let's table that side of it. And let's say it was Brad Nelson instead. Now, I've heard Brad can be very intense to play against. He's very all business when he's playing. But all in all, I have never really seen anybody accuse Brad of cheating or angle shooting or whatever you want to call it. So, I guess I want to use this example as somebody who doesn't have that specter of past errors over them. So if he had made a simple mistake like that, would you believe that there should be a stronger penalty? Because he is part of the MPL. And again, I mean, I still believe no, just because I feel like at that point you're validating these people that like want a pound of flesh every time somebody fucks up. Because here's the thing. Magic is by nature a very complicated game. Mirror Match was just texting me, asking me about an interaction earlier today. And yeah, I looked into it. I gave him my impression, and he said, yeah, that's what I was thinking, but then, like, I kept looking into it, and I think, like, studying for the judge's exam has actually made me a worse player, because I keep overthinking things. And, I mean, for real, go and read the comprehensive rule book. Do you know there's, like, I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but there's, like, 7 parts to casting a spell. Do you know you pay for it last? After all these other checks and balances? Yeah, no, the rules of Magic are very complex, and when you're playing at a level like a GP or a Mythic Championship or even an open, a Classic, when you're playing at that higher level, that's what really separates the ranks of players is, players that know how to use every piece of timing to their utmost advantage and, know when the exact correct moment in the game is to, pull this crazy trick. When you see crazy card interactions that, like, at face value, without that deep understanding of the rules, you don't see the interaction. But once you have that really deep understanding, like, I'm going to float my mana in response to the Wilderness Reclamation trigger, and I have 3 of them on the battlefield, so that one's going to trigger and untap my lands, and then in response to the next trigger, I'm going to do it again and build up this giant mana pool. Like, less high-level players look at Wilderness Reclamation and see it as, well, there's not really a point to having multiples, is there? But it's, understanding all these timing things. Like, yeah, okay, that's a kind of basic example. But, it's knowing the difference between when this enters the battlefield and as this enters the battlefield. So when you're playing at that level with these nitty-gritty interactions, you probably know all the ones in your deck. You may not be as up on what your opponent's doing, and that's kind of your opponent's job to ensure that their spells are resolved properly. So really, his opponent should have stopped and said, wait, no, per the wording. I mean, I can see saying that an MPL player being caught actually cheating with intent to cheat, not only losing their MPL, but expulsion from the DCI. All right, that may be a little extreme. I mean, we definitely need stricter sanctions on cheaters in general, but Or if a Hall of Fame player is caught cheating, I can see an argument for, well, they should be expelled from the Hall of Fame and the benefits that go with that. I can see in the MPL, if you're caught intentionally cheating, saying, okay, that's immediate termination of your MPL contract. And you're never eligible for, such benefits again. But to say that, they should receive extra penalties in the tournament, I feel like that's excessive. I feel that players make mistakes all the time. And I guess if you're lucky, it's a mistake that hinders you rather than benefits you, so you don't have everybody freaking out and having decided that, nope, must be intentional. Like, you see them make mistakes on the Versus series, too. And, chat, flips its shit. Like, oh my god, that's not what that card does. Whole Kite Sail Freebooter, because that was back before they were doing Versus Live. So Kite Sail Freebooter can only take a non-land, non-creature card. And the first time that they were, because it had been spoiled, but the cards weren't out yet, so they were proxying. The first time they were playing with it on the Versus series, they actually put a banner across the video that said, "We are aware that we did not understand this card. Please do not leave comments. We realized this." Because, the comment section is just full of people being like, well, yeah, the game's really easy when you cheat. Or misunderstand a card. I mean, it happens. And as far as, well, the MPL players should be held at a higher standard, I don't know about that. Because Magic is a mentally intense game. By the time you're at round 8 of the day, and you're doing well, that means you've been on your game all day, you start to drain, you start to fog a little bit. And I don't think extra penalties for, them and their opponent not keeping track of what's going on in the game is, really necessary. But that's just my opinion on it. For whatever that's worth. I guess tomorrow, probably going to talk about this new London Mulligan bullshit. Yeah, I'm sure that sentence right there says exactly how I feel about it. But I'm going to try to keep an open mind and talk about it a bit. But all that being said, I'm home now. I even did just a little bit extra. As always, if you made it this far with me, thank you very much for listening, and hopefully I'll talk to you all tomorrow.